Our lesson this coming Sunday, May the 15th, is entitled Redeemed from Devastating Failure. And notice, please, Sunday school teacher, we're going to be looking at two different passages of Scripture. One is going to be from Luke chapter 22, and that's going to focus now on Peter denying that he was a follower of Christ when between the Garden of Gethsemane and the next morning when the Sanhedrin meets at the house of the high priest. And the second part of your lesson now is going to focus on Peter then responding to the Sanhedrin after he and John had healed a man in the temple area sometime later then of this, and that's going to be in Acts 4. So we're going to have two different passages of Scripture, Luke 22 and then Acts 4. And so there are two main focuses in our lesson for this coming Sunday. One is on the denial of Peter that we're going to look at first, and then second will be the boldness of Peter then and the arrest of Peter, and then how he answers and responds. And one of the important verses of the entire New Testament now is going to be in the book of Acts, where Peter talks about that Jesus is the only name under heaven, but not like that. And so we're going to see this now. So Christians can be accused now of being very narrow-minded bigots if they really believe what. And I had a student that I'll tell you about who said that to me in class years ago when I was a university professor. But let's look now at the two then. So the first focus is on Peter denying the Lord, then at the house outside, warming himself by the fire, then during that night, and the next will be then later after he and John had healed this man. So from Luke chapter 22, we'll jump over to Acts chapter 4. Well, let's look first of all then at the passage in Luke 22. In this passage we're told now how when the soldiers came and arrested Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, they came and brought him down to the house of the high priest, and Peter, we're told, followed far off. Now, you remember, Peter was bold and brash and bragged in the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus had warned them that he would be betrayed and many would follow. Old Peter said, "No, I never will. I'll not deny you no matter what." And so Peter affirmed and swore that he would not deny Jesus, and later on he's going to then deny Jesus in a very, very clear way. So we're told now, and the lesson picks up with Jesus then being taken from the Garden of Gethsemane then to the house of the high priest, and Peter follows now and sits down outside, I think because it's in the spring of the year and it's during the night, so it's pretty cool. Jerusalem is about 2,500 feet above sea level, so it can be cool at night and early in the mornings. And a young maid comes up to him in verse 56 and says, "Aren't you one of his followers?" And we're told then that Peter denies it, saying he didn't know the man at all. And then we're told that somebody else came a second time, and Peter denied it a second time. And then another person came, and he denied it a third time. And then look at the word now, if you will, please, in verse 60. It said, "And then the cock crew." The word there, if it was from the Latin, might refer to the blowing of the bugle of a Roman soldier, indicating the last kind of announcement of the night. But many see it as the literal crowing of a rooster or a cock. So the cock crow is usually interpreted as being a rooster crowing because it's just before dawn. I mentioned in an earlier lesson that I've just returned from Israel, where I was escorting a group, and one of the places that we took the group to was called then the Church of Peter Gallicantu. Gallicantu means of the cock crow, and it's a large Catholic church built on a hillside not too far from the upper room, and you can see almost the Garden of Gethsemane from there, about a mile away. And that beautiful Catholic church has in the basement of it some places cut out where you could put people and keep them overnight, and many think that that's where Jesus was kept until they could gather the Sanhedrin, because he took them during the night. The Sanhedrin had to be aroused up out of their beds and come there. It'd be around midnight. And just outside of that church, they built a little patio area where church groups like ours could sit and we could read. And as we read the scripture right in front of us then, the Catholic Church has created then a Roman soldier, a statue of a Roman soldier, metal soldier, with Peter and these young maids, and on the top of the pedestal behind the Roman soldier is a rooster up there, and hence the name of the church, Peter of Gallicantu. So the cock crew. And when Peter heard the cock crow, then, in other words, he realized that he had broken his promise to Jesus. He had denied him. And one of the Gospels, because all the Gospels tell you about this, indicates that Peter, in other words, saw the eyes of Jesus, and Jesus looked at him. He went outside and wept very bitterly. Then. So the first part of the lesson has to do with the bitter failure of Simon Peter in denying his Lord when he had swore that if necessary he would die with him down in the Garden of Gethsemane. He was so bold and brash. Even I'll deny you, but I'll not deny you. I'll die rather than deny you. And then, lo and behold, he has denied his Lord, and now he's brokenhearted. So he's a failure in the first part of the Sunday school lesson. Now the second part switches. It switches all the way now into chapter 4. And we're going to be looking now at verses 8 through 12. And Peter and John have just healed a lame man now in the temple area. And a crowd gathered, and they began to preach. As a result of their preaching now, they